Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home.
Welcome back to another episode of Duck Dogs, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Miller. And before we get going here, let's make sure we thank our wonderful sponsors that make this show possible. So thank you to Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that we feed our dogs here at the kennel, and it is what feeds and fuels our dogs as we head into the busy season that we are about to embark on here as we head south for waterfowl season. So www.eukanuba.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs for your four-legged hunting partner. So be sure to stock up as we head into, whether it's you're going into the back half of the season for those of us up in the north, or if you're just starting the season down south, be sure to go check out www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent is our shotgun shell of choice. I'm going to be loading up cases of Kent Cartridge bismuth. That's my personal go-to as I head down south tomorrow. So Kent Cartridge is definitely worth not only finding but stocking up on when you can find it. www.kentcartridge.com. Also, thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test-ready kennel, both in the intermediate and in the large size, so you can be sure that your dog is traveling as safe as possible no matter where you are. Also, check out the spinners, check out the blinds, basically anything that has to do with dogs and waterfowl. They've got you covered, www.luckyduck.com. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for your outdoor clothing as we head into the season. This is what keeps us in the field longer and more comfortable. The reality is that you just enjoy your time in the field when you're comfortable. So www.sitkagear.com. Last but not least, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium option to train your own dog at home. Step-by-step video library. They'll walk you through how to take your dog from A to Z. Also, a great community of training groups, of commentary in the private groups, whether that's the Facebook group or the online forum. So many advantageous things to look at to help you take your dog to the next level. And if you are a Duck Dog listener, which if you're listening to this, you are, DD100 will get you $100 off your membership. DD for Duck Dogs, DD100 will get you $100 off your membership to Retriever Roadmap. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you're off to a great start to your week. We are kind of in a whirlwind here as Whitney and I will head down south to start our Arkansas waterfowl season here. We'll leave tomorrow, get down there, have a few things to just kind of prep for opener, which is this Saturday, and it just feels right. It feels like it's finally time. It's time to get down there. My big game season is for the most part over for the year. I do have a late season archery hunt that I'm still planning on doing late season, but right now it's just about time to get the dogs out and working. But I am actually joined here again by my beautiful bride.
Good morning.
And she has a little story that she is going to give. It's actually going to be really interesting. Whitney went on an upland hunt to Montana, and she has some interesting notes about that from a dog perspective that I think is valuable. I'm going to tell my mule deer story. I can't believe how many people were wanting and excited to hear about Lake 10, the whitetail story. So I was like, well, I killed a big mule deer the very next week. So let's tell that story too. And then as we head into Arkansas, I'd really want to talk about what I'm doing to prepare the dogs for the upcoming season. And one of the reasons that I want to do this is because I feel that there's just been too often in recent times here where I've gotten phone calls from people, and there's just this assumption that the dog is just going to walk into the season and pick up where they left off. And I mean, I'm talking about, I'm prepping my very seasoned dogs, not only, my newbies, but it is amazing how many times I've been hearing that here's this dog that I haven't done anything with since June or July. And oh my gosh, they didn't have a great first hunt. And it's like, no kidding. I mean, so I really just kind of want to go over what I'm doing to prepare my dogs, because the reality is that my dogs, because of all my big game hunting, so I went from 2 weeks overseas in Scotland, then I came back here, was whitetail hunting in Missouri, then I went from there to Alberta for mule deer, and then basically, have I done anything since coming back? I can't think of it. Well, I went on that. I had to go on, not had to, don't mean to. I went back to Missouri for another week because so I bought a hunt for so I have a buddy that's an outfitter down there, and they do a great job. Indian Hills, if you guys are looking for a great whitetail hunt, they've got great farms, 15,000 acres. I think they're over 15,000 acres now. Just beautiful lodge, great people, awesome deal. But our landowner that we're hunting with down in Arkansas, he really wanted to go on a whitetail hunt. So bought him a hunt, and so that's why I said I had to. I didn't have to. I did have to, but I didn't have to. I went down there and spent the week with him as he hunted. It's a relationship thing, right? We got to hang out, spend time together outside of the duck season. I think my buddy Jake Terry, if you guys know our Terra Media, he put it best of like, he said something to the effect of like, there's a lot that goes into making this game work, and there is, it's not just writing a check and showing up. It's relationships. It's what are you doing outside? We don't get on premium property without having the relationship to be able to do so. So there's a lot of intricacies. My gosh, I just got tongue tied. There's a lot of things that goes into this.
Yeah.
But so I was down there, and now I'm back, and
it's been crazy.
Yeah, the reality is that my dogs in particular, they just haven't had a lot of work in the last month because of all this. And so I feel like it's important for me to share what I'm doing to prepare my dogs and what I'm preparing them for. It may even be more important. So we're going to share and talk about that too, just kind of a preview of what's to come here today. So Whit, why don't you give us kind of a breakdown of your upland hunt that you went on in Montana?
Yeah. So it's a hunt I've really been looking forward to because I love Montana, new country for me to upland hunt. I've never hunted out there before, and just with a great group of people. So we had a lot of fun. We went out there, and it was a 3-day hunt, and I loaded up Purdy and Sally. I just really, obviously Purdy's always my go-to. And with taking Purdy on my girls' retreat, I wanted to get her more exposure this time in a more real live setting, not just at a pheasant preserve. So,
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
So, just in case people don't know, like Purdy is how old?
Purdy's 4 and a half,
and it's hunted with you for the last
3 years, 3 years, somewhere like that. And it's really interesting. So both Purdy and Sally are imported from the UK. And the way that they hunt over...
Well, and Sally, this would be, again, not to interrupt you again, but this would be Sally's first hunting season. So
correct.
Really her first hunt.
Yeah, her first live hunt.
Was in Montana.
Yes, it was.
So this is a really interesting deal. So go
ahead. Okay, so they are both imported dogs. And when over in the UK, they hunt so different than the way we hunt here. They hunt in a line with their dogs, and... Josh, you might be able to speak on this a little bit better than I can because you've been there.
Let me speak on it because we actually have listeners from the UK, and I don't want them being like, "What is she talking about?"
100%.
So the way that a a retriever is often used overseas would be more in a picking up fashion. Okay, so they're sitting at your side, often in a group, as there is shooting on driven hunts, where they're just sitting, they're marking, they're being sent on retrieves. Okay, in a walk-up style, which would be the dogs walking as in, if you're a hunter here in the States, think of you are walking a pheasant field, but the retriever is at heel at your side the entire time. So where overseas, maybe if you're an overseas listener, think of how a spaniel would work in front of you, right, in quarter and flush, stop to flush. That would be the expectation of a retriever here, more times than not, when you take them into an upland field. And I know right away, my friends and listeners from overseas shoot me notes because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But most of the time what I hear is like, why would you ever ask a retriever to do that? Like, have a retriever be a retriever. Have a flusher be a flusher. Have a pointer be a pointer. And I totally get it. We over here, we do like to have like, the dog that can do it all, right? And the reality is that I believe there are very few breeds that even have the capability of doing it all. A Labrador being one of them. And yeah, I totally understand the thought of, have each breed do what they were bred to do. But this is something that we do here. And quite frankly, a lot of these dogs do it very successfully. It's just a matter of understanding the control aspect. And then that's why I talk so much about how, if you really go back and forth so much from upland to waterfowl in the manner that we hunt here, and go from hunt, in front of you to then all of a sudden at your side, sit and be steady. That's something that can be oftentimes very difficult for people or for young dogs to understand, that difference. So,
absolutely. Okay, so now, sorry, I was just looking something up really quick. So I had Purdy and Sally. So Sally, she was used to the very under control, be by your side hunt. And it was really interesting over these 3 days. And I went into this knowing I had very low expectations for Sally to start to understand that she can work out in front of me. And to be quite honest, I didn't even know if I was really going to hunt her, because if I was going to hunt her, it had to be successful and in the right setting, because I could totally set her up for failure if I didn't read the situation correctly. So it was great because there was a lot of opportunity for Purdy and Sally and I to go off just with Jeff Lander, who owns Primitive Outfitting, great friend of ours. And he understood what I was doing with Sally. So I explained to him, this is Sally's first live hunt. This is what I'm working on with her. These are my expectations of her, that I have no expectations. But I really want to just try and start to get her that live exposure and build her confidence into what I'm trying to get her to do, which is quarter out, under control, in front of me. And it was really, really fun to watch her start to understand that. And the first time that I took her out, I didn't take Purdy because I needed to be 100% zoned in on Sally the entire time. Just because it's also new country for me. To be honest, I was nervous about snakes a little bit because it was warm out, and that's just me. And everyone was like, Whitney, it's too cold. But I don't know. It's a brand new country that I'm upland hunting in. And it was, are you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, for, so Jeff wasn't guiding, in this,
No.
when you announced the Primitive. So, Jeff's, great dude. That's who I'm mule deer hunting with. And actually when I left mule deer, Jeff went down, he lives in Texas. So he was traveling down to Texas, and that's where, Whitney met up with him on a public land hunt, to do all this. And, the reason I mentioned that Jeff wasn't guiding is because, if you were with a guide, maybe there would be an expectation that the guide would just do whatever it is that you as a client, were hoping to do. In this case, why I feel like it's important to talk about this is that we had, in this situation, a young dog in Sally that, although she has done a lot of work, a lot of that work has been in an overseas style fashion. And so there was going to be a learning curve that Whitney was going to have to do in building her confidence in letting her understand the new game. It's the same game, but now we're changing the rules. Think about how difficult, that would be, to understand that. And this is where having the right people that you're hunting with is so crucially important, because if people don't get it, if people don't have the patience, that is going to add to your stress level, your anxiety, which in turn is going to feed to the dog, which the dog is likely just going to stick right to your side because they don't understand why they're causing this frustration. And the whole thing would have been a complete disaster. And so especially with a young dog, who you go out with, I do think is incredibly important in the situation that you put that young dog in. That's the difference between success and failure. And for something like this, like what I hear way too often is that if you have a young dog, first off, a big group hunt is really not the best situation to get that young dog into. There's too much chaos. There's too much going on. But when you take that young dog into the field, there's always going to be, the one guy that, is the dog expert, even though he probably has no idea what he's talking about with dogs. And, well, just follow me. He'll learn from Duke. Like, Duke's the best dog here. I'm sorry, your dog is not learning anything from Duke. Like, he maybe learning some bad habits, but it's not like, Duke's going to be like, come here, Squirt, I'm going to take you under my wing and show you how this is done. Like, it doesn't work that way. And so having the right people understanding this is very important. And the way that I understand it, and I'll let you keep going, is that you guys had kind of split up.
We did.
So it wasn't like you had all these dogs all together. You split up and let Sally kind of understand the game.
Right, because the other people in our group, they had short hairs. And so then you add like just an extreme other element of now I'm not going to run Sally with those dogs because they are big running dogs. And that is not the point to get Sally wanting to run way out there. I need her to learn that she's got to stay 10, maybe 15 yards in front of me, quarter in front of me. And then those dogs go on point. And there's just the pointing dog aspect just had so much other that it was going to bring to the table. So I knew I was never going to hunt her with those pointing dogs. And you got to make sure that those pointing dog owners are okay with having a flushing dog. So then you want to look out for them and their style of hunting as well. So it was great that we could break off. I was really proud of Sally by the end of it. Every time I took her out, I could just see her really starting to understand that it was okay to get in front of me, a lot of encouragement from me, and a lot of quietness, because the reason I say quietness from myself is because I don't want to always have the attention on to me. If I'm constantly talking to her, she's not going to get out in front of me. She's going to stick right by me, and then she's going to start relying on me. And that's the last thing I wanted. So just gave her praise a little bit. She'd go out, and then I'd be quiet because then I would just let her think about it, let her figure out what her job was.
That's a really good point. I do feel like that's probably one of the biggest faults that we do as handlers is over talk to our dogs.
For sure.
The best thing you could do is shut your mouth. The dog knows what they're doing. And you're right that especially with the dog that is unsure and trying to figure it out, that talk just makes them continue to bring their attention back to you, which oftentimes distracts them from the job that you're hoping that they do. We see this all the time with young dogs trying to learn the game. And, sometimes the best thing to do is just be quiet. That's a great point. It's
actually one of the things I tell all of our puppy clients that when you're trying to gain a puppy's confidence, take them on a walk and don't talk to them. Just let them go. So that was great. That was a highlight of my hunt, was just watching Sally grow a lot in her hunting abilities with me. It was really hard hunting bird-wise out there. It was hot, so I really had to make sure that the girls were not getting overheated. A lot of times we'd take them to a river, let them go swim for a while, and then we'd get back hunting. And Montana actually had a snowstorm, and they were not able to cut their crops. So we had a lot of standing corn. And as you know, pheasants love to be in standing corn. And yes, you could go hunt the standing corn, but the last thing I wanted, I would hate hunting in standing corn with a dog because it is just a recipe for disaster. And you just never know what's in front of you, or, there's just a lot of unknowns that you can't see. And then the birds were very educated. I felt like although our dogs were recording beautifully in front of us, the birds ran like crazy. I mean, they would get up 50 yards ahead of us and then jump into the next the next area that they felt like was a lot of cover. And we hunted coulees, which I never hunted before. I felt like I was a little bit of like a mountain climber sometimes. But it was, I mean, it
fun
was
terrain though, isn't it?
it was beautiful terrain. It was so like where I was, there were really no mountains. It was just a lot of coulees. And it was honestly like perfect hunting with the coulees and the big country for the pointing dogs. And I will say the pointing dog, you know, they were more successful than the labs just because they had the big country to run, the pointing aspect of it. They got some coveys of sharp tail, which was great. I saw a lot of hen pheasants, which I love to see hen pheasants, but I would have loved to see more roosters too. So bird work, it was not the greatest, honestly, but I will count this trip as a win for Sally's sake because it was really great to watch her. And then, of course, be with people that I really enjoy being around.
Right. Well, and so for those of you that don't know, when you're trying to think of coulee, what do you mean by coulee? Think of like the topography would be kind of hilly, but with kind of these deep cuts in between the hills that add a lot of terrain. There's a lot of bends. There's a lot of humps. It's really, really beautiful.
It is.
I really think it is, especially when you're talking about a prairie. You know, oftentimes prairie, like you think about, you know, for those of us in the Midwest, we automatically think about like North, South Dakota, like just like a whole, or Nebraska or Iowa, like a whole lot of nothing, right? Just flat, you know, grassland. You know, for when you get to that out west, you get this coulee aspect of it. It really is gorgeous. And
Oh my gosh,
you know,
yeah.
we're hunting mule deer and a lot of, you'll hear a little bit about coulees later on. But so how many people did you have hunting?
We had six.
6 people hunting.
Yep.
How many birds did you kill in 3 days?
I killed none. I just didn't get an opportunity
It
to.
sounds like most of you killed
And
none.
I think we got 2 Sharpies and maybe 3 roosters. But that's not the point of it. It would have been great to get more. And there was just a lot of stuff working against. I felt like having those crops up really sucked. And maybe I'm just making an excuse for it. I don't know, but like
probably did.
it was really hard.
So where because I think you said you walked like
We
30
walked like
miles
30
or
miles.
something like that. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Eastbound and Down.
Oh my gosh.
But which Whitney thinks
Save
is like
yourself.
the
Don't
dumbest
watch
show ever. But the scene comes to mind when, and I really wish I knew how to make memes because I would have made, you know, something like this for this. But the scene comes to mind where, like, you know, you have this, if you've never seen it, he's an ex-baseball player that basically his career ends and now he has to go get a real job. So he goes and he's a phy ed teacher. So he's talking to the principal. The principal's like, oh my gosh, this baseball player now works for me, blah, blah, blah. And so he starts out, he's like, I'm an athlete too. Yeah, I'm training for a marathon. I do this, and that. And his comment back is, yeah, I play real sports. I'm not trying to be the best at exercising. That's what I think of here. Like, no, I'd rather go shoot ducks and go.
Oh my
go run
gosh.
30 miles and not pull the trigger. But
Here's it. How many mornings, like, there are so many mornings duck hunters get up and barely see any. There's no difference, Josh. No difference. Okay.
I actually would have loved to be with you on those walks because I love that country and that topography. It was just
Oh my gosh.
It was a joke.
I took, like,
it was an advantageous joke because like you couldn't just let it slide.
I took a beautiful photo though of like this amazing, like crystal clear blue sky. You have like the clouds in there that are just like the sweeping white, and it's just this amazing prairie grass, like perfect prairie grass. You've got the pointing dogs out running. Everyone's like, it was the coolest photo, and it was beautiful. It was a great company out there.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is, and you had mentioned it somewhere in there, that it's pointer country.
100% pointer country. I'd love to get our setter ranger out there.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. And I know a lot of you that have listened to this for some time, you know this. If you're new to this, you may not. That, you know, probably my favorite part of my career as far as competing, you know, goes, as far as the dogs, is when I had my years of field trialing off horseback. I loved field trialing those pointing dogs off horseback. The horses added an element to it. You know, the pointing dogs were a change of pace for me. We were very successful, which of course, you know, made it even more fun. But that, like, there is something to be said about getting on, you know, big country and letting a pointing dog go do what they were bred to do, which is go run, go cover ground, go find birds, go, be that statue, literally go from as hard as they can run to a complete statue. It's really a fun thing, to watch. And the reality is they just cover more ground. And so in a situation like this, naturally, they're going to be more successful. And I know, we had talked about early on, I feel like I know comments are going to come already, so I'm just going to hit this one. So I know already, that I had said that there are very few breeds that I feel like, can do it all. And I said, Labrador is one of them. And I know this is where all my versatile breed owners are going to get after me and be like, well, they're literally bred to do it all. And I get it. And I trained a lot of very good versatile dogs. There was actually a point, so I have a setter named Ranger. How old is Ranger now?
He's 9.
He's 9. So from the ages probably 2 to 6, maybe 5, 6, somewhere in there. Ranger was one of the winningest pointers as far as field trials go in this area. I mean, that dude won all the time.
He's a gamer.
There was another dog that I was running in that same string named Pancakes. Pancakes has a story of how he got that name. But he was not my dog. He was a short hair. And that dude, it was almost like it wasn't if we were winning the field trial. It was which one of those two was going to win it that day. It was like one. And so like we've had some just awesome short hairs. I get it. They're a versatile dog. But I would also say that there's going to be a strength one way or another. And oftentimes it's the pointing side of it. So just because they retrieve doesn't mean that they are a retriever like a Labrador, right? Just like when I hear people say that, like, oh, my lab pointed. Like, I'm not going to say that he's going to go point like a short hair or setter, or a true, pointing breed. And so, so I understand, the whole, can do it all. I truly don't believe that there's like one breed that is set to do it all. And
well, it's kind of like a 3-sport athlete.
Yeah.
Kind of, right? Like you're going to excel the best at one. You're going to kind of rank.
Unless you're the best at all.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You're
get,
so pathetic. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It's just one of those things that this is where finding the right breed for you is so crucially important.
Yeah.
It really is. And, Ranger, what's so fun about Ranger is that he was able to understand the difference in what we were doing very quickly. And what I mean by that is, in the same year, he took, hold on, sorry, I just banged the microphone because I'm turning around to see what this trophy says. So in consecutive years, he took 3rd and then 2nd in the rough grouse trial. And so he can do that, which is thick in the woods, so like suck it in a little bit, right? Then I can get on a horse, and he can be like way out there, covering tons of ground. And then we can go on foot and hunt, and we guided with him. He sucks it back in. And like he understood the game based on what it is that we were doing, which I think is really that is a unique intelligence trait, I believe. And so it was fun. It was fun to watch that. But going back to the whole reason we got onto this is that the country you were hunting was suited for them.
100%.
Just like I would say, if you were to go on what I would call more of a traditional pheasant hunt in the manner that most people hunt, which is in groups, walking in a line, maybe have some blockers on the end. I would say that a pointer is not fit for that.
Yeah.
As far as they want to go do their job. They want to go, hit a bird, boom, pin it, point, have somebody come in and walk and flush. And oftentimes it's very difficult to do in that group manner. You got dogs running all over the place. You got people hooting and hollering, which makes these birds want to run, which makes these dogs get super frustrated because now that dog, that bird that they have pointed is moving, right? Like there's a lot of things that just because it's upland doesn't mean it's like this one breed.
100%.
Right? It's how are you hunting, this bird, and how are you going to be able to best put your dog in a situation to succeed. So like that group hunting, right?
Yeah.
Like Ranger would not fit well in that group.
No.
Where Purdy would.
Yeah.
Right? Now I'll also say that I believe, and I'll talk a little bit about this when we get to our mule deer. I hunted both sharptail and Huns
Yep.
up in Alberta. Had a blast doing it. I love Huns. Probably my second favorite upland game bird. Quail are still my number one.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It's hard to beat quail. Rough grouse are definitely in there too, but there's just something about the covey aspect.
Oh my gosh, I
love
know.
the covey aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a whole nother element. When you have a dog on point and there's like literally 20 little birds sitting at their feet and they're a statue, like you want to talk about self-control.
Right.
It's amazing.
Well, when that covey gets up. So there was a guy, great, actually, you know, I should call him now that I think of this, but there was a guy by the name of Ed Rader. You know Ed.
He's the sweetest.
Yeah, Ed actually was, if you guys are into just kind of like the history of, just kind of the sport and different tools. So Inotech was one of the first, e-collar companies. They had a bunch of things like, backing dogs and different, like bird launchers and things like that. They did way, way back, like early, like I don't necessarily want to say maybe pioneer. Maybe it was, but I wasn't around to be able to tell you if they were or not. But they were very early on, and Ed was a big part of everything that they did. And he's just like the sweetest guy. If you asked him how old he was, he would tell you. I know what he would say. He said, "There's only two things that are older than me, and that's dirt and Delmer Smith."
Okay.
So, which Delmer's a great dog trainer. That he's probably 95, 96
Oh
at
my
this
gosh,
point.
for sure.
And anyway, Ed had told me something about quail one time when we were actually. You might have been with me hunting on this quail hunt with Ed. Have you ever hunted with Ed?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay, I can't remember. Anyway, he told me, he said that there's no other 5-ounce object that can turn a grown man to jelly. And what he was talking about was a quail, because when the quail get up as a covey, it sounds like a Black Hawk helicopter, getting up off the ground. At least it feels like that. On that same hunt, so we were actually hunting. I think it might have been Ranger's first year. Like he was really young, and everyone was oohing and ahhing over this young dog and how well he was. And I remember I was sitting on, what horse would I have had? Red, maybe.
Maybe.
Might
Probably.
Might have been on Red.
Or was it Rocky? We had Rocky before Red.
Rocky wasn't as good as Red, and I feel like I was on a good horse on this one. I think it was on Red. Anyway, I was sitting next to Delmer, or I'm sorry, not Delmer, Ed, and Ed was on a horse too, and we were sitting there and we were watching. We came up over this hill, and Ranger's working down below, and Ed, I think, had one of his setters working down below, and we sat there, and he rode up next to me, and I was just like, it was caught in this moment, just taking the whole thing in, and he rode up to me, and he goes, "Josh," because we better hope and pray that nobody finds out that this is what we get to do for a living.
No doubt.
And I was like, yeah, pretty special.
Really special.
So, anyway, anything else about your upland hunt that you feel is noteworthy to share?
No, I don't think so. I mean, birds weren't great, but the point of it was that I was so happy with Sally. It was great company with the people that I was out there with. And, I hunt because I love to be with my dogs. It's not that I love to shoot the birds. I love to be with my dogs and go out and just have a great hunting season.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I think from a takeaway point here is that here you have a dog in Sally that is very talented. She can do everything you want her to do in a training setup situation.
Right.
But this was new, and your approach, your approach was right in how you handled it. And this is something I feel like everybody can take away from this, because especially when you're around people, and women do a much better job at this than us guys do, but we get our egos in the way.
For sure.
And we want this dog to perform, and we don't want to be embarrassed, and we don't, there's a lot of things that we put these unfair expectations on, rather than sitting back and go, you haven't done this before.
Yeah.
What do I have to do to make you be successful? Maybe I should be going to the game farm and doing some pen raised birds to ensure some success, to give you some confidence, because in this situation, which is exactly what you're doing, correct me if I'm wrong, it is by coming back and doing this for Sally.
Right.
But the biggest reason is that 3 days of doing that is not entirely confident building for a dog that doesn't get the bird contacts, that doesn't get the reward of the retrieve, that doesn't have the chance to connect the dots of, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I just think you handled it very well. And then your plan of action coming home and saying, okay, she did pretty well, but I could tell that her confidence wasn't fully there. She didn't fully understand what we were doing. So we were going to be going to the game farms, getting some birds, planting, getting in new areas, right? Because like, we could do this all at the house, but she knows the house. She knows the training grounds, right? Where you get her in a new situation and then give her that success there, trying to tie it all together. I think that's a great plan of action.
Yeah, and I would have never taken her on that trip if I had not taken her on my girls' retreat at Horse and Hunt to get her contacts on pheasants before going out there. Otherwise, we go on 4 walks a day. She literally would have been like, okay, Mom, we're going on another walk, having no idea that we were hoping to flush birds or, what her job was. So making sure I had prepped her for that hunt was really important.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go back to archery. So I'm going to share the story because I really appreciate everybody that reached out after I did this story on the deer I call Lake 10 and just kind of went over the history with that deer and just kind of the full story. It was fun to be able to on this platform get a little more detailed in how that story went. But I also didn't understand that there were so many big game enthusiasts that are listeners here. So because of that, I want to just take a quick minute and tell you guys about my mule deer trip because this was a really special trip to me. I had never hunted mule deer before. And Whitney had mentioned Jeff and Primitive Outfitting, and Jeff has gotten 2 dogs from us. I trained both those dogs, and he does spot and stock mule deer in Alberta. He also does, spring black bear in British Columbia, which I have done. He does moose hunts in British Columbia, which both Whitney and I have done, and both of us have killed moose.
Yep.
It's been like he does some really cool hunts up in Canada, and it's cool experiences, cool country. There's always something new. It's really fun. But the mule deer was something that I've been wanting to do for a lot of years, and ever since COVID, I just didn't have the opportunity to, right? Because first year shuts down. Maybe even the second year was shut down, and then it was like, well, you can only get up here if you're vaccinated, and then finally it opens, and right, like there was a lot to it. And Jeff persevered the storm, I would say, because you think about a guy like that who his entire business is based on essentially U.S. citizens coming up to hunt. When you have multiple years of that being closed down, that can be very detrimental to the business. So he weathered the storm, came out the other side. So we came, I went up on a mule deer hunt, and what was neat about this is I got to go with a couple of really good friends in my buddy B-Mac, Brian McClara.
McElray.
I intentionally call him McClara B just to irritate him. McElray. It's spelled McClara.
I know
Brian.
it is.
But if you guys have ever seen Hush or have interest in the big game stuff, the channel Hush is definitely something to look at.
It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, they do a great job. It started as a vlogging channel, and then it grew to what they are today. And I mean, I think they have like 700,000 subscribers or something like that. And they do a really good job of what they do.
Yeah.
All big game. But you will see some content of Brian training his dog Cruz, which is a strike puppy, and using Retriever Roadmap to do that. And he's kind of documenting, here's a guy that really doesn't bird hunt, and he was doing a great job with that dog and having a lot of fun doing it. So Brian, B-Mac, and then Matty Davis from Final Rise. And
who makes the best Upland vest.
Yeah. And so the 3 of us got to go up together and spend time together, which is really fun because you get 3 buddies together. We get to hang out, but then we get to do our hunts, and it was a lot of fun. But the hunting was very difficult. So apparently there was something, I don't know the details, and I should have looked more into this, but apparently there was something about how I think the Canadian government did like this eradication on like mule deer, like went in like the way I understand it, and this was from a local person. Okay, so I don't know how true this is. I probably shouldn't even be saying it, but something about like that, like they were like taking helicopters and like kind of like mowing deer down because it was like there were too many of them. Or like CWD was like a big deal, and they were trying to make it so it didn't spread. I don't know all the details. I should have So don't spread those rumors. I should have researched this beforehand. But anyway, like I think that like maybe there was something there. I don't know. I do know that they had some hard winters, the last 2 winters. So I think that was part of it. But it just finding deer was fairly difficult. And yeah, I found a giant deer that I put a stock on and just ended up at a dead end where I didn't have to move. But you've really got a taste for the spot and stock aspect of it, and I freaking love it. I love the aspect of glass, watch them bed, and then make the move as far as get the wind right, don't make noise, be smart with your movement, like just like the whole thing, just like trips my trigger. Anyway, found the deer that I ended up shooting, which was when we first glassed him, he was about a mile away. And saw him bedded on the edge of a coulee. And what they do on these coulees, we talked about kind of the topography of the coulee. A lot of times what I found, anyway, here, is that they'd be bedded like 3/4 the way up the coulee. And so I don't know if that's like the quarter way down or the third way down is to like block them from wind and elements. And then so they can oversee everything down below. I'm not sure why, but that did seem to be a pretty common trend of where they were kind of in that coulee column, if you will. And the weather also did not play it. So, we have low deer densities. We have weather. When we got there, I want to say it was like, I don't know, 30 degrees or so, not a dust of snow on the ground. I think we hunted one day in that weather. Went to bed that night, got up the next morning. I think we had gotten 16 inches of snow, and it was 0. And I don't know if it got into double digits the whole rest of the time. Mm-mm. And it was like the wind, that was without wind chill, right? So it was very, very cold. And so anyway, found the deer that I ended up, being able to harvest, but, spotted him from a mile away and then had to do a big hike around to get the wind right. So big hike around, got the wind right, and using Onyx, I was able to pin about where I thought he was. And so basically I'm using this pin the whole time and using the wind, and got probably, I'd say, inside 100 yards of him. But with that coulee, you could basically walk, most of that way. The wind is, right, so it's in my face, blowing away from the deer. And, I got on my belly and crawled the rest of the way. So I'm like, just like inching forward. And so again, I feel like I know where this deer is. And the deer that I had stalked beforehand, when you get into a certain point, you see antler tips. And that's when, okay, so now you know where the deer is. Now you can kind of set up, and then you just wait. And you wait, and when they get up, the whole idea is their butt goes up first. You think about how deer gets up. So head goes down, butt comes up, means they're standing up, so you got to draw. So then you draw. So then when they do stand up and present a shot, you're ready to go, because they're not going to give you much opportunity to do it. And so anyway, I'm crawling, and I get within, like, I feel like I'm really close, and I'm like peeking my head up over this coulee, can't see anything. So I'll crawl like literally one more step, peek my head up, one more step, peek my head, or when I say step, I mean crawl. Right? So my hands are absolutely frozen. Like, and I'm trying to take, like, I stuffed 8 hand warmers in my pockets.
Jeff said every morning there was just a mound of hot hand wrappers from you.
Well, because when I go on the stocks, like, I'm not going to go through all of this, get inside, a great deer, and then not be able to feel my hands, right? So, like, the whole time I'm like, I look like almost like a caterpillar, because I'm trying to crawl with my hands, like, in my pockets to keep them as warm and dry as possible. Anyways, I feel like I've got to be really, really close. Like, I'm right where I want to be. I look at my pin, I'm like, gosh, we got to be right here. And so Matt went on the stalk with me, but he hung way back. And so something just wasn't feeling right. So I didn't know, like, had these deer, got up and moved? Were we off by a coulee? Like, what in the world is going on? Because I feel like I'm right on top of the deer. I can't see him. So, and I'm, again, looking over the coulee.
Can I ask you a question really quick? So when you spot them, you see them laying there, and then you have to go around to the other side of the coulee. Mm-hmm. So you are guessing what coulee you were looking at when you were looking at them through the glass.
For sure.
And that's why when you walk up, they can't see you, is because you're coming from their backside on top of the
Right.
on top of the coulee.
Right. So we're coming from up on top.
Yep.
They're oftentimes, like I said, a quarter to a third of the way down the coulee from the top, it seems like. And I feel like that's to stay, just kind of like weather-wise. Because like you get up on top of those coulees, that wind is cranking. It's certainly colder. You get down a little bit, there is some protection. But then I also feel like they can see everything. Like,
for sure.
Like they can watch coyotes, they can do all this, right? And so, which that actually comes into play in the story here. But like I can't see him, right? Like I feel like I should be able to see him and I can't. And so my thought is, are we off one coulee? Like, do we need to back out and go around? Do we, what are we trying to do? So I wave Matt up. So I turn around and I like give him like the come here look, and you can just see he's like, what? And I'm just like, come here. And so he crawls up there, he gets up there, and he's like, what? I'm like, look, man, like I can't see him. And I think he's right here. He's like, yeah, I think so too. I'm like, yeah, well, I can't see him. So he like pokes his head up. He goes, did they move? I was like, I don't know. Like, so we're like having like this like mini little bro argument up on top of this coulee. And I'm like, look, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pull back, and let's just like get to our knees or stand up and just see. Right? That way, if something happens, I'm ready, and you just be on your rangefinder and range him. Right? If he happens to be there, just tell me how far he is, because now I'm second guessing everything. Right? So am I right on top of him? Did he move? Are we on the wrong coulee? Maybe like I pinned him wrong. Like all this stuff's going through my head, right? So he's like, okay, sounds good. So I get my hands warm enough and pull back, and I'm like, ready? 1, 2, 3. And I start to come up. And on the other side of the coulee, so kind of like the best way I can describe it is like if you think about like a V, we're on like the right arm of the V, and we're like coming over from right to left, and on the left arm of the V, I see 2 bucks. Like as I get up, there's 2 bucks laying there. I get right back down. So Matt gets right back down. He's like, what? I'm like, there's 2 bucks right there. And he's like, oh, good. I'm like, well, neither of them are him. And we didn't know the other 2 were even there because we couldn't see that side from where we were glassing. And he's like, well, gosh, now what? I was like, well, I don't think we have much of a choice, because like I don't think they saw me, but like they definitely kind of got up and moved a little bit. And he's like, okay, well, and I was like, we just got to go, right? So I just pulled back again. I was like, 1, 2, 3, and we both stood up. And so when we stood up, those 2 smaller bucks on the other side, they got up and they kind of started moving away. And I'm drawn back, and all of a sudden, it had to have been like 14 yards. All of a sudden, whoosh, and the big guy stands up, and he looks right at us, like literally turns and looks right at us. And if I believe in the Lake 10 story, I told everybody, like I was I talked about the frontal shots. Like I had literally researched frontal shots.
You had mentioned it.
Okay? So like he's literally standing right at me. So I'm like, I've played this shot time and time again in my head. Like I know right where. And Matt goes 20, and I just go boom, and literally right where I wanted, just pin, and like immediately. Matt's like, you stuffed him, and like grabs me, like big hug, and we're like jumping like complete idiots, like having this like, and then all of a sudden like it literally hits us both at the same time. Then we're like, wait a second, we should see where he goes, and we both like stop celebrating, like run to the top of the coulee, and we literally watch him just boom, and then just done. Like he was done in probably 15 to 20 seconds, from impact. And so anyway, like we're just ecstatic to get that close. And I was like, I look at Matt, I was like, I can't believe he was at 20, because it felt like he was at 5, right? And he goes, I don't know how far he was. I just knew that when he stood up, it took out my whole rangefinder, so I said 20. So neither of us actually know the range that he was. But here's what's cool about it. So I'm shooting that Hoyt RX-7, which I really, really liked. My first Hoyt since my first bow ever. I'm shooting Easton Axis arrows with the Hush, 4-blade vane system. And then I'm shooting the Valkyrie broadhead and weight system and inserts. And I really, really like those Valkyries. They're really heavy. When you knock tune them, they're completely dialed in. And I'm so confident with them. And one thing that Matt had said early on, like, because when I got into this, like Matt and Brian were both the guys who were like, you got to shoot Valkyrie, It's a big out west thing. Not something you see so much here in the Midwest. I'm big on heavy forward, so like the system I'm shooting now is going to be right at like that 500 grain, mark. And the Valkyrie, like one thing that Matt said, like he's like coast to coast. That was like his slogan for coast to coast. Like you're blowing through it basically no matter what, coast to coast. I shot that deer frontal, and that arrow went entirely through the deer, all the way through the deer. It was absolutely incredible. And so when we got to him, it was just. I love whitetail hunting. I think from more of the cat and mouse game that you play with stand setups, with wind, with they're making the move and you're trying to intercept that move. I love the aspect of watching deer grow up and like letting them become mature and watching that process. And I do feel like it's very much a journey in that way. I also feel like the shot is actually almost anticlimactic after, like certainly climatic when you shoot, but then after that, there is a real sense of, to me, it's sadness is the best way I can put it, that it's over. Right? Because you have this story with this history, and it's special. But I am addicted to this out west thing. Like I like this spot and stock thing. Oh my gosh! Like the making the move, everything. Like it is really you're the predator. Like you are doing everything in your power to trick and get it inside and this close. Like to get inside 14 yards, 170-inch deer, which is what that muley ended up going. Like to me, that's a feat, and that just tripped my trigger. I just absolutely.
And
absolutely
you're very patient. Like you have to be so patient on that type of a hunt.
Yeah, especially when you get into, I think if you're a whitetail hunter, you'd hear a comment like that and be like, well, you got to be more patient sitting in a tree stand. And yeah, I think there's something you have to be said about that. But think about this, like what Whitney's talking about. There was one stalk, so that first stalk that I put on that big deer, who's certainly bigger than the one I shot. Like the one I shot was fantastic, love that deer, but he was a giant. I got within about 92 yards or something like that. And I think I stayed there it was like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
I stayed crouched down in that position behind that little bush that I was trying to use as some kind of cover. And that's the patient side.
Yeah, and freezing cold.
Yeah. And I mean, it's freezing. Like Jeff was sending me text messages like, are you okay? And I didn't have hardly any service. So I'd finally get it come through and I try to text back and it won't go. And he's like, I'm going like, he probably thinks I'm freezing to death, which it was definitely cold. But being in that moment, like I didn't realize the cold, like it didn't hit me how cold I was. But it's a different patience. Like it is, the being in the stand is patience. But there's also a comfort level to that. This is a very uncomfortable patience. Like,
right.
I mean, I got up the next day, the next day after, when I killed, but then every stalk, like there was a part of your body that hurt.
I believe that.
Because you were so awkward and so crunched up and cold and stiff and everything for that long, there was that. And then you're crawling. I mean, you're belly crawling, your hands and knees. You're like, this is a different deal. And so I really, really loved it.
That's awesome. I'm glad. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Whitney's currently thinking, so how many mule deer hunts are we going to be adding to the list now every year?
Oh my gosh, seriously. What I thought was really cool. Like I loved that we got, like you brought the rack home and we saw that. And I did not realize that. I asked Josh, I said, why is there velvet still on here? Like it was just a little string of it hanging off of there. And I was like, what in the world? This is so weird. Like we obviously don't have that here in the Midwest. But he said like it's all prairie. They have nothing to rub up against to get the velvet off. Yeah. And I think it's actually really, really cool that it's still on there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the first deer that I did see in the scope, it took me a second to be like, is there really that much velvet on that deer?
Really?
I mean, we're talking, what were we, middle of October, end of October?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, gosh, like really? And then it hit me that, I mean, I'm looking around going, other than a fence post that they might find, I mean, it's all like this red brush. So it's like this like brushy, like certainly not anything firm to sit and rub against. And so it was really interesting. And so the deer I shot had just a little bit on one of his twos still on, which is kind of cool. Cause
It's cool because it's like dangling.
Yeah, it is neat. Hopefully
Very authentic.
that can stay there on that mount. Really neat though. I mean, again, just different. Just it's the same thing that you had talked about with your upland. Different country, different environment, different style of hunting, different things to learn.
Yeah.
And I just love learning. I love being in these new environments. So, so that's my mule deer. So
He's a beautiful mule deer.
yeah,
Way to go.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's get into Arkansas because this is kind of the big thing I wanted to dive in here today. So Arkansas opener, we're super excited to get back down south to kind of kick off what for us it's the heart of our waterfowl season. And I know those of my buddies that are in the Midwest would be like, gosh, like why don't you hunt more around home? Well, there's just a lot going on. It's still busy at the kennel as far as training goes. These big game hunts I'm trying to get on. Whitney has we have like our early dove season, early teal season. There's a lot going on in those couple months, and it's really sad because I think Wisconsin waterfowl might end this week even.
Really?
Ends.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Actually, could you look that up? Because that's interesting because it is. I can tell exactly what it is right now. It is currently 54 degrees outside.
We had a bonfire last night.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it is not waterfall weather. And our buddy Ben Commodore, who has Cloud9 outfitting up in Alberta, or maybe he's Saskatchewan. I can't remember if he's Alberta or Saskatchewan now. Anyway, he's like covered up with birds right now. And so the weather has just not done us any favors as far as pushing birds down. And, we're sitting here and season is about to be over. And here we are. So, what is it? What is...
Did I Google that right? I don't even know.
No, as much as I would love to think that waterfowl season runs through January 2nd, it does not.
We are really lucky in the fact that we can hit so many hunting seasons before we have to hit it really hard down south.
Right.
Really fortunate.
Okay, so November 21st is when it ends, and today is November 15th.
Yep.
So 7 days from today.
6, yeah.
Or 6 days. 7, 6, yeah. 6. Why did I have to say 7?
That's fine.
Anyway, either way, season here in Wisconsin is going to be over before it even really starts. And this
Yeah,
has
it really
happened
is.
a lot.
Yeah.
Now, the number of times I have left our farm to drive down to Arkansas, and our field at the house is covered with mallards, and I'm just going, what in the world? Like, it's so frustrating. Anyway, so all of these reasons are reasons why we spend a lot of time down south in the winter. And the other side of it too is that when everything shuts down basically up here, you think about January, December up here in Wisconsin, not the most ideal time to get anything done. We can be down south being productive, and so it extends our season. It allows us to be more productive in an unproductive time up here weather-wise. And so there's a lot of benefits that we have going down south. So that's why that's a big chunk of our season. But there are things that we have learned and things that that we are preparing for as far as the dogs go. So the first thing is that, as you've heard, my last month has been nothing short of chaotic, with multiple weeks down in Missouri, a week plus in Alberta, 14 days in Scotland and England. Like, I've just been gone a lot, which means my dogs don't get the work.
They've been going on 4 walks a day with me.
Yeah, yeah, right. Which, as great as that is not the training that I would be hoping for to head into the season with. So what I have to do is I am going through right now, since I'm home, this pre-season prep program where I'm trying to, I already know that I put in the work all summer. I know these dogs are dialed in, but I'm also not going to go this on Saturday and expect that whatever dog I bring out on Saturday is going to perform the same way that they were, a month and a half ago when we were last training, like really training. And because that'd be an unfair ask on my end. They're going to be overly excited. They're going to be overly jacked up. There's going to be a lot of things going on. And again, kind of what I talked about at the beginning, why I think this is important to talk about is how often I've heard this now recently with people that call in and be like, oh, yeah, I need some help. My dog had a poor first hunt, or I feel like I've got this issue. I feel like and what's interesting to me is how many times I've heard that the dog got nervous or the dog got uncertain, and it's like, was it the birds? No. Is it the guns? No. Well, what is it? Well, it's situational. And if you put yourself in your dog's shoes, and oftentimes if you're, let's just say it's an early morning, you're going to a blind or a pit that the dog has never been in before. You put him in there, dog has no idea what we're doing, where they're looking, why they're there, and all of a sudden, really before it gets light enough to really see a whole lot, right? Shooting hours come, boom, 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 and the dog's going, what in the world is going on? And all of a sudden, the dog shuts down. Like, the thought process of that it's the dog's fault is silly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a situation where the dog has no idea what is going on, and you've set the dog up for failure. And so the question would be, okay, so what would I be doing with that? Well, ideally, if possible, we'd be going out and doing a quick training session in the environment that they're going to see that day before. Okay, so, for example, Tucker's going into his first real season with me this year. So if we are going to hunt the same place, maybe Saturday, Sunday, something like that, Tucker's not who I'm bringing opening day. Right? I'll bring Brock, I'll bring Strike, I'll bring Clyde, I'll bring somebody that's seasoned to where I can trust him, more. Have a great first hunt, tour, I have fun. And then maybe midday or something like that, bring Tucker back and do a training session in that environment. So he has an understanding of what it is we're doing. Throw him some marks, throw him some retrieves, maybe use a couple dead birds that we shot that morning. Give him the exposure of going out there doing it. So then the next morning when he gets on that tree stand, he understands what it is. He understands why he's there. He understands how to get back on that stand when he comes back. He's not swimming circles around me going, what do I do now, right? So because I can take the pressure off, this is now a training session, I can go through him and ensure he's going to be comfortable enough to go be successful. Mm-hmm. If I throw Tucker out there, now this is a dog that walked through his hunter retriever champion title. The dude's an absolute stud. I love this dog. But just because he's that talented and that good does not mean I'm going to throw him into an uncontrolled situation and expect that he is going to just walk in here like it's another training session. It is my job to handle that the right way. It's my job to make him successful in that. So what I'm doing right now is I'm prepping the dogs for what I think that they are going to see the most of. Okay, and the reality is, in the situation that we have for this season, they're going to see a lot of probably speckled belly and snow goose hunts that they are sitting either inside or along, kind of like in the middle of a Lucky Duck 2x4 style blind. The reason is that's just how the guys that we have been hunting with, it's how they like to hunt. They don't like to have dog blinds on the end. They feel like that, flares the birds, whatever, but that's how, whether I believe it with it or not, that's how they want to hunt, which means I have to adapt my dogs to it. Mm-hmm. My dogs are going to hunt with a lot of dogs that break. I've learned that, I've accepted it, and it's just part of it. These other dogs that they're going to be hunting with, they're going to break, and it's going to be something that they're going to have to understand. So we've been taking, so when we do bird and gun intro at the kennel, we've got these young dogs that are going out, running after birds, it's hoorah, rah, fun, fun, fun. I've been having my dogs sit there and watch that. And they'll get to go get one every now and then too, but they have to go watch these uncontrolled dogs run around and go have fun, have, kind of the chaos with them still sitting there. And, they want to go do it, right? Like, especially Tucker being a younger dog, he's kind of on his toenails a little bit, being like, let me go. But this is a controlled manner to where I can prepare them for this. And so what I'm trying to do is just really cherry pick the few things that I'm like, look, I know you guys know how to run marks. I know you know how to run blinds. I know from a control standpoint that you have everything down. Yeah, we're still doing that. We're still touching that up. But here are the things I really think you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know how to work in and out of this blind. You're going to need to know how to handle breaking dogs and not get overly competitive, not want to break yourself, right? Like, these certain things are what I'm honing in on, of like, this is what you need to be able to handle. So, again, put yourself in the dog's shoes, right? I mean, if you're on a basketball team and had an injury and hadn't shot a basketball for 2 months as you recover, coach probably isn't putting you in to have the game-winning shot for the first time back, right? And if he did, probably pour on the coach, right? You're the coach, right? You have to put the dog into the right situation and go be successful. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here.
You said something the other day. I don't know if you've said it on here or not, but you said we humanize our dogs until it's inconvenient for us. And it falls so in line with all of that. Like, put yourself in your dog's shoes. They're going to make mistakes. And like, you know, they're not robots out there.
Yeah. I've said it on here, I think, a couple times in the past, but I really believe that. I think it's so true that we do. We humanize our dogs until it's not convenient for us to humanize them anymore. That's no different than how we just talked about how our egos get the best of us when we're in a group setting, right? So our stress level goes and we get frustrated and then we, it just spirals. And, again, that's, we look at our dog and now all of a sudden it's a dog.
100%.
Right? Not the humanized factor. And so this is definitely one of those, and it's definitely one of those that we have to look at and be like, hey, if we didn't do the work, like that's on us, right? And that is going to be a factor, for me too, because of how this last month has gone for me in my travel, that if I go in that opening day and something is just off, I have to be ready to handle that. And I can tell you that I probably won't be shooting the first couple of groups no matter what, just because I want to keep an eye. Like, I'm probably going to run Brock just because he's the one that I feel the best about. He's going to be dialing. Clyde, he'd be right there too, right? Strike would be right there. They all would. But just the understanding of, like, you've been here, done that. Right? No matter what situation that we're in, whether it's a big blind, whether it's sand in the woods, whether it's whatever it is, like, you've been here, done that. I'm not going to put Tucker in that because he's not he's not been prepared. He is ready as far as a training standpoint goes. He's ready from a talent standpoint. He's ready from a composure standpoint, but he has not been in these types of situations. And so a lot of the first few days are probably going to be me and him going out middle of the day and having training sessions in these situations so that I can have him prepared for when that time comes to go out. So
it's fine. If you don't shoot, I'll knock him down.
Well, so Whitney, tell everybody how you're gonna handle Arkansas opener, because it's a little chaotic.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. Like, I don't have any puppies right now, and I'm kind of living like I just do what I want during this hunting season. I've had an incredible hunting season. I've never had one like this before. But I'm gonna drive down with Josh, and then hunt Saturday morning, opener morning, and then fly home Saturday afternoon.
So we're going to Arkansas for one, maybe 45-minute hunt because it's going to be a slammer. And
that's exactly why. It's going to be a slammer. I want to be there, and it'll be awesome.
No, it'll be great. I'm really glad that you're making the time to do that because, it just these are those opportunities that not everyone has an opportunity to take advantage of.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know what next hunting season's going to bring. I don't know what a week is. We have little kids. You don't know if when they're going to be sick or when I need to be home, and stuff comes up all the time and I miss opportunities. So when I have the opportunity, I have to take it.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, I think that kind of wraps things up for us here. So Whitney and I will be leaving tomorrow morning to head to Arkansas. So if you guys follow Riverstone Kennels on social, Instagram, Facebook, we will be doing our stories.
Yep.
So keep the lookout there as we go ahead and do that, and you'll get to stay up to tabs with what's going on in Arkansas.
Yep. And if you're hunting, make sure to tag us.
Yeah, for sure.
We love that.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and go take advantage of those opportunities that you have, whether you're just starting your season or just ending it. Go get the last little bit that you can. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Yukonuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.